As a racial justice advocate, I'm often invited to give talks or to do workshops where I talk to white people about race. A big part of my practice is to offer real-life stories, examples, that type of thing, that help white people to be able to identify white supremacy in everyday life. My husband's family is white, and I often use the cultural differences between my family and his family as a way to help white people see their whiteness. There's one example that I use that always gets a ton of pushback. My husband and I were late to our first Thanksgiving with his family. I say late because it started at 12. We got there at 12:10, but whenever we got there at 12:10, everybody was already sat down and eating. I didn't know that. I use this illustration to point out that different cultures have different understandings of time, lateness, and what it means to be polite. Without fail, a white person will push back and say that lateness is impolite. I always use this as a teachable moment. I usually ask a series of pointed questions that challenge their assumptions. Sometimes it takes a lot of work, but by the end, they're able to identify how white cultural dominance works in this one small area of life, which opens the door for them to start peeling the onion.
There was, in 1 minute, so much shit spoken there that it was hard for me to really quantify everything. But we'll start at the beginning. First of all, does your white husband educate you on your lack of understanding because you're black? I imagine not, because I can imagine her popping off if he said something like that. Like, what she was saying would only be acceptable for her to say to him because he's white. Can you imagine if he said to her, your blackness is, you know, your whatever word she wants to use, is closing your eyes to how we do things here?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm quite surprised that she's actually with a white man.
Yeah, that surprised me as well.
Yeah, the way she was speaking doesn't seem like someone who would want to be with a white person.
Also, I'm half black, so I'm just going to tell you. Black people time is a real thing, and it's not good or excusable. All of my black friends, for whatever reason, can't show up on time. I don't know why. I am not included in that. It's not we have to look at it differently because of the race. You're just late, and it's rude. It's rude to show up late somewhere when people have planned something. Your friends might excuse it, or family members might excuse it, but if you say to me, Mike, can you come to my house at 7:30? We need to get X, Y, and Z done, and I show up at 8 o'clock. Maybe there's a reason for it, and I could say, you know, I'm sorry, whatever. But in general, if I kept on doing it, it'd be a bit rude, right? We're supposed to be starting at this time. You keep on showing up at like late. You can't use this excuse at work, right? You can't say, I'm from Africa. In Africa, you know, we look at time differently. So if I say 12 and show up at 1, there's no problem. First of all, you're not in Africa. Secondly, that's bullshit. Everywhere you go, if they give you a time and you're late, generally people don't like it. So I don't know what onion you're talking about peeling. You're just talking out of your ass. It's not a white supremacy thing. It's not that white people are trying to push their standards of living on us. It's if someone gives you a time, don't act like a child and show up on time. And stop trying to educate people. Do you know how condescending that video was? I'm not even white and it pissed me off. There's no, like, oh, these people are white so that their concept of time differs to mine. What time is it? It's 5 to 10. It's 5 to 10 for me and Sabi. It's not 9:50 because I'm black. You know, time hasn't changed. You could say time is relative, but I don't think that shit applies here. She's trying to talk about racism and the way white standards are pushed on everybody else. The fact of the matter is that you're late. Take some responsibility and accountability for your lateness. Stop giving yourself a bad name and show up. Black people time, that stereotype didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't come out of nowhere. Sorry, I hate to break it to you. Black people time came from someone. It's because, and in my own experience, my black friends always show up late. They always show up late, and it's annoying. It irritates me. I don't know if you've had that experience.
What, of people showing up late?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people show up late. I mean, I'm not really one to judge because I'm late for a lot of things.
True.
And a lot of the people who have shown up late for me, it's been a mixture. It hasn't just been
black people.
Yeah. So but I do understand the concept of like black time, and you get a lot of like black barbers that will show up an hour late if you've booked your haircut for a certain time, or things like that. Like we had an instance with a cleaner who was supposed to go somewhere for 3 p.m. and she didn't start making her way there till 6 p.m. and the people whose house it was had already left, and they're like, and she was like, well, I'm on my way now, so what's the issue? And it's like, you were supposed to be there at 3 p.m. But it's just the notion and concept of, well, this is what I'm used to. And maybe they like haven't been questioned on it before because everyone else is also being late as well.
It's not acceptable. Okay, I'm talking to my black friends now, any black people watching, okay? Someone that is half black, I'm telling you right now, it's not acceptable. And you know it's not acceptable. If someone gives you a time, do not use culture or whatever. It may be if you're in Zimbabwe or Nigeria or Ghana or someplace, and that's if someone says 12, everyone knows it's 12:30, fine. But we're over in the UK, and I know that applies in America. If someone gives you a time, it's not a whiteness thing. You're supposed to be on time. Now, if the cleaner, the black cleaner, was meant to be at 3 o'clock and she said, well, I'm on my way, I would just fire her on the spot. I'd say, well, you're too stupid to understand what's going on here. This is not, you don't get to push your weight around because you're a different skin color. I don't know what planet you were born on.
Hey, this is my own comment, and it's in reference to the video that I did about punctuality and white culture. I'm pretty sure if you tap it, it'll take you back to the original video. But I wanted to expound on this a little bit. Specifically, I wanted to challenge white people to expand their thinking on this topic. The most common type of comment that I saw in the original video was some version of, I'm white and I'm always late. I don't think that people were trying to refute the premise of the original video, but I do think that white people were trying to distance themselves from this particular feature of white culture. Here's where I want y'all to dig a little bit deeper. This is something that I notice white people do a lot whenever we talk about whiteness. There's an acknowledgement that a certain type of whiteness exists, but also an attempt to say, oh no, I'm not that type of white person. Here's the problem with that. A lot of times whenever you try to distance yourself from an aspect of whiteness, you're actually reinforcing that aspect of whiteness. So going back to the original example, when you say that you're late, you're still operating under dominant culture constructs of time and punctuality. You're still being white about it. Here's what you missed. There are people who view the world very differently from you. And so you have to train your brain to be able to see things from a different perspective.
That is fine if you're in their country, but you're in America and they don't do things like that. Over here in the UK, we don't do things like that. So Sabi's Turkish Cypriot, I'm Greek Cypriot and black. We conform to English standards because we live in England. You live in America, dumbass. If you lived over in some African nation and they did things like that, then fine. But you don't. And if you don't like it, then piss off. It's that simple. You can't go into somebody else's backyard and try to change things up and then use some dumb excuse like this is white supremacy, this is white culture. You're doing it the white way. First of all, it's not even the white way. It's the right way. If someone gives you a time, then you fucking show up. Like, what is it? Because you're irresponsible, you want to make this about a race? Jesus Christ, man. You know how dumb you look making that video? No black person sane of mind agrees with you. I can guarantee you. If they do, then they're not sane of mind. That's an excuse. You weren't raised right. That's the problem here. There's so many things I could say where it would get me demonetized, so I'm going to hold my tongue, but she's an idiot. She's a race baiter. That's what she is. Trying to use her skin color as a means to... And you know, because we live in a time now where if you're white, you shut up. It's our turn to talk. As in me. Right? But which is, I don't believe in that nonsense. I don't care where you're from. Like, that's a load of bullshit. In my opinion, if I have a white friend and he says to me, show up at 12 o'clock, and I show up at 12:30 and he gets upset, I'm like, cool, I was wrong. I showed up at 12:30. I'm not going to say to him, well, due to white supremacy, blah, blah, blah. Shut the fuck up, man. Like, get that shit out of here, man. Get this. I'm done. I ain't got nothing else to say.